Hello, welcome to my channel. It's good to have you here. My name is Gemma. I am a mother. I'm a criminologist. I am a courtist as well, right? So, in this one, I want to talk about how, child abuse disclosures has been worked through the system over 100 years. I just want to talk about this a little bit, add some theory and context, and underpin a couple of things. So, I'm going to talk about society. I'm going to talk about psychology, and I'm going to talk about determinism. Right, so Sigmund Freud, he had a theory based on a child's development, but the reality is that I'm just going to pick one out. I understand the aspects of self-awareness, children rising in aspects of understanding self-awareness, and we've done this in recent studies, like social development and how children recognise themselves over the age of 3. They start to recognise other people over themselves, or it might be the other way around, depending on their own understanding of the world around them. So it can be in opposition. But let's get back to Sigmund Freud. We understand that some of his theories are flawed, and it was used to I think, discredit children making disclosures. And I think the reason why is because they were said that the children lie, and then there's obviously one of Sigmund Freud's theories that came out from this, which I think didn't help. Sigmund Freud didn't help the narrative swayed within society, because he said that that children can have perversions of their family, which I think isn't true. And I think it was used as a sort of a backlash to the amount of child disclosures that would take place at a time. There were children in workhouses. There were children there back in them days, so the 1900s. So in the 1905, this is when it came out. So 1916, the House of Parliament said small boys lie. When the disclosures were coming out about them, children were making disclosures, and it was addressed in the Houses of Parliament, and they just said small boys tend to lie, and that was the only response until the 1940s, addressing any issues relating to children. So there was a big gap in that time where nothing was done for children, and Sigmund Freud's theory was accepted worldwide. Ew. So I profusely disagree with the fact that children have perversions of their family, because it's a scapegoat. The reason why it's a scapegoat, because it's almost like you're blaming that child, and you place that blame on that child when there's an adult, or there's adults and then there's children, and they're the children. You don't blame the children for something, and if an adult, or if there could be an understanding that takes place maybe, but you still don't say that there's a perversion between that child and that adult to stop that. And I think that's what the link was that broke an understanding within our society and left it handicapped in a way where we didn't really resolve any issues relating around children, we didn't progress, okay, in providing a child-centered approach. At least we didn't get there until at least 1989, the United Nations Conventions of Human Rights for the Child, right? So it took a long time to actually address an issue with children in our world. So it would have been about 75 years. So that might have been when it was open. Some archives can be opened, right? After a certain amount of time, it becomes unclassified. Yeah. So this is kind of like where there's a red tape around children, you can't really find out a lot of stuff. And the only way it can be printed is if it's sort of like directed in a narrative that sort of like doesn't make it seem like there was child abuse taking place. And a lot of academic research that I've seen, scholar work, stuff like this, it could be interpreted either way. Like the child abuse disclosures and stuff, and how they dealt with it back in it wasn't even addressed. And so then it became addressed in 1989. And, a couple of more laws put through, the Child Rights Act 1998, But so it looks like there's something being done for these children in recent decades. So lastly, I want to say Sigmund Freud spoke about self-awareness, okay? And this is kind of like the self-awareness that we have. And it's developed. So I agree that there's an aspect of self-awareness that takes place in his theories. So it's always like an evolution of ideas that come with it. But I think that it handicapped our society more than anything, because it uses it scapegoats the children, right? It scapegoats the children. And this is about being believed fundamentally, okay? So small boys lie. What's the opposition? If they're not lying and they're telling the truth, they're not being believed. So this is really the biggest issue going, and it's not being believed. And I think this is also a concern, because even in today's society, I know from my own personal experiences that I disclosed when I was younger. So this was when I was younger. So it was after 1989. Okay. And they just left me in situations where I was abused. Okay. And they did. Okay. So this is like institutions and stuff like this, to make disclosures and then like nothing to be done about it. This happened. So essentially I wasn't believed when I was a child growing up, when I made disclosures, when I had proof. Okay. So I can understand this from a personal experience. I can also understand it from an educational one too. So because it happened to me, I wanted to dig deep in the roots of why this took place and why this takes place. I wanted to find out what was going on, and this is exactly why I studied criminology. This is why I wanted access to the library, because I wanted the archives, and I wanted to read about what I could read about as much as I could. And I also went upstairs into law and parliament. So that's where they were together. There was parliamentary stuff and law. So I went through that as well. So there was hardly anything. I think there was a couple of things about keeping children safe. I think I was like 19, 13. So, but a lot of it was an in-between phase. It wasn't it was under a guise of protection, but it was almost like the removals. They were removals. And it didn't seem like there was any I only read a few things about the laws right there because there wasn't many, basically. So on my quest for knowledge, I searched high and low because I wanted to know what was going on. And it's because what happened to me when I was a child, how I was experiencing things growing up. There was a timeline but there isn't a lot when it comes to laws and things like this passed for children, only since 1989, like I said. So basically, from my own personal experience, so I'll go into this now. So when I was younger, I was abused for hours on end, long periods of time, and it wasn't very nice. And I just knew that I would never do that, never be like that, and never be around anyone who's abusing me. I would never let that happen to me. And I always used to say that and be very strong about it. No matter what, that you just be strong and you just don't let people bully you. And even if you are a child or an adult or whatever. But I just think that sometimes people just get away with it, and I don't know why. So when I was a kid, when it comes to things like social services and that and institutions, when I was a child, I was ignored largely. Okay, so I made disclosure and had evidence, and they didn't help. Okay, so I was left for years, like, to sort of fend for myself, and I was taught that we don't disclose child abuse. I was taught that we don't do that. and because nobody will believe me, right? So I learned this when I was really little. So I know what it's like to be unseen and unheard. I know what it's like to have that sort of hang over you as well, and forms of humiliation that come with it, and also of not being wanted, and things like this. So they stem from a childhood wound. Okay, so we might be faced with these issues when we grow up. So as an individualist perspective, I would suggest that you treat yourself with so much self-love that you can, and keep going from that self-love and belief in yourself, and that one day you will be able to be, you will be free. Okay, so this is kind of like how I saw it when I was a child, because I wasn't treated very nice and I wasn't believed through the institutions, right? So I wanted to find what was going on. How can we figure this out, right? So, I used to have other role models as well. So is it based on like solely you having that experience and then you growing up? Or do you learn different things, okay? How to release anger in a different way and stuff like this. So you grow up doing this, and I wanted to know the intelligence to it. So that's why I went to education. So you can evolve in many different ways from these, and you don't always become a perpetrator, okay? So they do say it's 50-50, right? But sometimes you become the complete opposite to like how you were treated, okay, in a fight for justice. Okay, this is what makes us stronger. This is why keeps us around for longer, because we care about things, okay? So this is like the positive side to it eventually. And if people don't want to believe you eventually, I think you can sue now, can't you, if you're ignored in child abuse cases, okay? So there's ways around it now, where they've created other institutions to be able to support people who have been abused in institutions and stuff like this, or left in places where they shouldn't have been as children. So this is a good solution, okay? So just remember that you can sue them because that's all they care about. So you might as well just hit them where it hurts and sue them. So it gets me into this. When I was a child, I was profiled. So what's this? So profiling is like where they just like basically like collect notes over you over time. So you're profiled, okay? So this can happen when you go into care system, or it can happen if you've had like constant social service involvement in your life, or an institution that it's a profiling of you. So is this sort of dangerous? Okay, because you can have profiles of people and it can be used against them in their elders, in their time. You've profiled that person. Is that now a target? Can you cherry pick that person and target that person? What for? Right? So there is a questionable corruption taking place, in my opinion. And I think, the financial beneficiaries to that will indicate a high possibility of this taking place. So maybe like somebody should accept that and take away the financial beneficiaries, okay? Because this is important, because it shows that we're not willing to put our children, they're priceless. We're not willing to do that to our children. You don't get money for putting them in adoption services, agencies and care homes, especially since the spike. This is questionable. I was very shocked when I heard about the spike in care homes, and I've been speaking about this for a while now, and it's just getting higher and higher, and I don't see why that's not changing. Why isn't somebody doing something about this? Okay, because it looks like to me there's a lot of people gaining a lot of profit off these minors at the minute, right? All these children going in care. And, I didn't want to say it, but there might be some institutional corruption taking place. And if there is, there's going to be consequences for society, because it just collapses, doesn't it? Because now we're not just handicapped from theories, Sigmund Freud's theories, but we're just scapegoating anybody to gain financial beneficiaries for what? Children's going into care. Come on. Right? So I studied this as well. And like I said, there was a lot of stuff come out. You have to wait, I think, 75 years, and you have to wait for the archives to be released, because a lot of it's been classified when it goes to institutions, care homes, children being placed into care and stuff like this. It's red taped, and I think it's 75 years, so you can only see like what's after that. So I think this is why a lot of these, the United Nations Conventions Human Rights for a Child, that was introduced. I think that's why they did that, because it kind of like solved the problem of like everybody accepting that, you know, there was a lot of child abuse taking place in 1989. Really signified a move to want to stop that, to actually acknowledge an engagement that this is taking place, okay? And children's rights are important. So, you know, we have to rethink our strategies when it comes to this. And the reason why I'm saying it is because I know personal experience of how it's almost like you can be left in situations that are dangerous, or you can be taken unlawfully and placed in these horrendous places like care when they're not loved. So it's almost like it's too much. The decisions that are being made, that can be made, can be wrong, really wrong. And to ignore things as well, because I was ignored when I made child disclosures when I was a child, and I told a social worker, and she just ignored me. She thought I was lying in the file. It's sad because I wasn't, and you know, it really taught me that I weren't to speak about it. But I had different peers when I grew up. I had different peers around me who were supportive of me. So I'd have different role models in my life. And that's where I went usually, with my nan. She loved the gardening, right? Peace, right? So I grew up with different peers. So let's get into this. Determinism. Is everything determined? Like, can you just like grow up with a certain type of mentality? No, you grow, you learn, you experience, and then we change. Our personalities always grow and change. Our identities change with every experience that we learn that's new or different, or even if it's unjustified. It either makes you stronger, because this is the way you gotta see it. It's like you've got to be stronger, because it will make you understand that what you care about is more important, and it keeps you going. Okay. Because if you just let go, you stop, then what? Okay? You have to have something. You have to fight for an aspect of justice. Okay? This is how you get activists. This is how you get people who want to change the world, through their own experiences. They come with an understanding, so we can rise to an I know we can create a better place. And that we can't just attack vulnerable people in our society all the time. And it can't be hidden like this. It shouldn't be hidden, because it goes against everything that you would stand for. Because if we treated you like that, you probably wouldn't even be in the positions that you were in. Oh, lucky you. No. It's not one rule for you and one rule for me, or them, or anyone. We're not second-class citizens to you. Just because you're in a position of that's flawed, that you're not even adhering to. Right? It's an inverted state. This is where society dissolves. Not because of the people, but because of the policies that are in place, or the laws, or the acts of not following the law in these places. Collapse nations. And human rights are always meant to be the fundamental principle of why we are here. Final thoughts. I just think that when it comes to things like this, it's really difficult to sort of wrap your head around, because it's such a hard topic. It's not nice to talk about, and people don't want to. It's sad, but somebody's got to, haven't they? You got to talk. So we've got to do this. We've got to figure this out. You got to get rid of them financial beneficiaries, because this is ridiculous. Like, they shouldn't be. They're harvesting on kids. Losers.